Meanwhile, the IFP leader, Mangosuthu Buthelezi, has called on NFP leaders to tell their members the truth on the reasons behind the party failing to pay the IEC registration fee. IFP leader Mangosuthu Buthelezi is now appealing for calm in KwaZulu-Natal ahead of the local government elections.
Very upset, really, more than I've ever been upset, even in 1994, when we ourselves were doubting whether we're participating or not participating. Because we don't deserve, and the country doesn't deserve what is going on, what the NFP is doing. Because we ourselves in 2011 actually were late in sending names of people from Umzombe, and as a result of that, IEC excluded us, because that's low. Now, for us now to be attacked just because, as we speak here, as I speak to you now, at Dumbe, my information is that the NFP is marching and that it is assaulting anyone wearing an IFP T-shirt as we speak now.
That's clearly, as we speak?
As we speak now, just now, yes. And that is following other things which they've been doing. They've been a series of things which are very provocative, which they are doing clearly because they are trying to bait us to retaliate so that the IEC finds itself without any option except to say that there can't be an election there because it cannot be a free and fair election. So I'm very, very upset because I don't see why NFP members and leadership should use us as a pretext for their ineptitude in not sending in time, the money that all of us deposit as participants in the election.
Now talk to us about that standoff with the NFP, where you have called as the IFP for them not to get a reprieve from the IFP because they missed the deadline in paying their fees.
Yes.
But why did you make that call?
Well, of course, I really don't know why we deserved it. But I hear that because our lawyer was an amicus curiae, a friend of the court, then they say we're responsible for their plight, for what has happened to them, which is actually nonsensical because it is not logical, it's just nonsense to try and use us like that. We actually were hoping ourselves that when they went to court, they'll get the condonation that they were seeking. We're not hostile to them, at all, as a party. We try to actually give them moral support.
Now, it's not just the NFP or the IFP supporters that there's violence between them. There's also the independent political parties or political contestants that's also involved in some of the violence we understand. Just before the elections, what do you think should happen, especially in KwaZulu-Natal, to stop the violence?
I think that it is actually a responsibility of us as leaders. For instance, I really welcome the opportunity that the SABC gives me to appear now in this program, because I'm appealing to our members not to be provoked to retaliate, because we'll be cutting our noses despite our own faces if they do that, because they'll actually be reacting in a manner in which the NFP hopes to do so. I've referred to this as the biblical Samson option, because in the Bible, Samson, after losing his eyes, he decided to die with everyone else. That's what the NFP is doing. And it's very sad, actually, very tragic. And if the leader of the NFP was not ill, I would be talking to her. We tried actually to contact the Secretary General, Professor Kubisa. His phone was closed. We tried to phone the chairman, Mr. Shalembe. But of course, we didn't know whether they were still in their positions because we had they'd resigned, we had they'd withdrawn, they've been doing the to and froing. So, but nevertheless, I felt that we should contact them because as far as we are concerned, they are the incumbents in those positions of people who have the responsibility to actually talk to their people to stop this for the sake of South Africa and the whole country as such.
With the NFP now out of the picture for the local government elections, is there any benefit for the IFP with regards to voters?
Actually, I wasn't born yesterday. I'm not so naive. If the leader of the NFP is still a member of the government, clearly, as far as I can see, you can easily say that because the deputy minister is still actually kept by the government, they should vote for the ANC.
Mm-hmm. Now, this year's elections seem to be more competitive, Nkosi. What do you think is some of the contributing factors to that?
What do you think?
It seems like the run-up to the elections is much more competitive. What do you attribute that to?
You see, it's more
competitive. It's more competitive.
Yes, actually, I think that probably from 1994, I don't think that we've had a more contested or competitive, as you say, election than this, because there are more parties now, you know, and there are more parties when the style has become very aggressive, you know, and so on. So clearly, we've never had an election in which there's such energy and volatility, you know. Before.
Especially when it comes to volatility. Is the number of independent candidates making the situation even worse, you think?
Quite so. In fact, we have the same problem in the IFP. We have quite a few people, even in Ulundi, who are independent, who actually are trying to actually to take votes from our official candidates. And of course, the sad thing, as you say, about the ruling party is that there have even been deaths. More than 8 people have died in intra-party conflicts.
Now, Nkosi, you've called for calm. What would you say to the other leaders now in the country today?
Well, I would say that, you know, in 1994, all of us in South Africa thank the Almighty that at long last, you know, democracy dawned in our country. And really, after 22 years, it would be tragic if after 22 years now, we take a few steps backwards, you know, to upset that which was struggled for by so many generations of our people and by us as well, merely because of the ineptitude and the greed of certain people who think it's worthwhile to kill others to become councillors.